Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today we're continuing our series on the writer's bookshelf and the importance of having books on your bookshelf that are helpful to you as a writer. This series is covering crafting, covering memoirs, reasons why you should write. Later on, we're going to be going into some of the more helpful resource type books. That's going to be a few weeks from now, but what we're doing today is we're doing part 2 of our Larry Brooks series. This week is going to be on story physics. So this is immediately follows the book Story Engineering. And this book assumes you've already read Story Engineering. I have them both. See. I actually have the third book here too, but that's going to be a surprise for next week. But with story physics, this goes a little beyond the story structure and goes more into like the dynamics of your book, the things that really make your book shine, gives it its power. And it's Larry Brooks' the same kind of no nonsense, get to the point story structure, craft. Just he gets to the point on how to do it. And this book really, I wouldn't call it more of the same because it's not designed to be more of the same. What it is, it's a fair continuation of the principles that he's outlined in the first book. So if you've read engineering, it's natural to go to physics next, so you should do that this week. I'm not going to probably spend a whole lot of time covering this book in particular because, again, I think if you've given the first book any amount of your time and attention, you're going to like this one too. And so I think by default it's worth getting, but we're still going to go ahead and at least look at the index so you can kind of get a sense of what's in here. This is Larry Brooks here, if you haven't seen a picture of him yet. So in part 1, his title is May the Story Forces Be With You. And the content starts search for story, the shift toward story physics, the 3 phases of story development, the physics define writing in context to something, and the ways and means of which to search for a story. So it really kind of goes into the essence of why should you write this particular book that you're writing, but also how to develop it. And so one example inside the book, you have this always has been and always will be a learned craft. And and he actually references Malcolm Gladwell. I just actually read the book Outliers a few weeks ago, and he references Outliers here in this paragraph. So the point he's making is you're bringing your skills to the craft, but you're bring your craft to the story, and you're telling your story, through these physics, through this, the momentum of your craft and your storytelling. And he talks about process. He says your process doesn't define your outcome. Your process may define the timeline and the number of inkjet cartridges required to get there, but the requisite story forces that need to be in play at the end of the processes are the same no matter how you go about it, i.e. whether you blueprint every story beat or confront every blank page without a clue as to what should come next. Let's have the assurance of a massive revision process, and so on. It's straightforward voice, but he's practical. He's trying to get you to the page. He's trying to get you to sit down and do the writing, and then he's helping you get into the mindset of doing it well. And so in this first section, he's trying to help you identify how you should approach it, essentially, not just the why, but coming up with your reasons for choosing your story, whether or not your story is a good idea. So again, it's a lot of continuation of the story engineering that gets more into like the heart of what makes your story work, not just the structure, not just the thing that's familiar, but the thing that makes you special and unique. So so it's another one I think you definitely need to look into because the goal is goosebumps. Vicarious experience as a goal and as a brute force of story physics can be more than simply time and place. It can be delivered through social and character dynamics as well. It's like that old fortune cookie bag or gag where you add the words "in bed" to the end of any message. Just add, what would it like to be? Or I can't read. What would it be like to the beginning of your setting or situation, and you're already delving into the vicarious experience? What would it be like to be married to a serial killer? To discover your child has supernatural abilities, to suddenly possess supernatural abilities, and so on. So these questions are in here. And again, it's just it's helping you get to that mindset of, will this story even work? And why is that important? And I'm going to end it here, but think about that. Why is that important? Why do you need to know if your story works? Well, if you're writing for yourself, well, even then, you're writing for some purpose that you need. Maybe it's cathartic. Maybe, it's to remind you of something. Last week I talked about the, man who drinks coffee. And, on the surface, that means nothing. But maybe there's like a metaphor in that. Maybe, you think that this guy who drinks coffee is just, he's like a symbolic creature of something that's really important to recognize. Again, like, coffee addiction, addiction in general. Maybe it's something you want to show your reader how to overcome. So the man with coffee is no longer a man with coffee. Maybe the man with coffee is a guy with a coffee problem who, needs to be fixed. And, your story might be about how he overcomes his coffee addiction. And that's something more relatable. And so you're going into these states of what if, and, how do you put your concepts together so that, people want to read them, including yourself. Because ultimately you're your first reader. And if you don't want to read your book, why would anyone else want to read your book? And, if your story is literally, hey, I have an idea about a guy who drinks coffee. Well, what's the story about? I was like, well, he drinks coffee. I mean, he drinks coffee. That's like the story. Okay. And he drinks coffee. No one's going to read that. You're not going to read that. You might read it because, it's self-indulgent. It's like, hey, I wrote this. But, you're going to flame out after a page or two. It's like, oh, I have nothing else to say. Oh. Well, okay. You want to have something to say. You want to have something that gives your story that 300-page plus momentum. And so I think story physics gets into the heart and message of how to, achieve that. Whereas engineering tells you how to do it. So, or how to structure it, rather. So engineering, it's about how to put it together. Physics, it's about how to make it meaningful, how to make it dynamic, how to make it interesting. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, so story physics is your, again, Larry Brooks, that's your reading assignment this week. If you have not bought the book, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I don't think they have it in the bookstores anymore. It was there for a while, but in 2020, nothing's, who knows. So you can still buy it online. Highly recommended. And make sure you come back next week, and we're going to do Larry Brooks's final book in the trilogy. And I'll give you the spoiler alert on the day it comes out. So I want you to come back. But make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, sing me a song, or don't. I don't care. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But most importantly, write a book. You're 4 books into you're 3 books plus this into the series, so hopefully you're starting to get a little bit of that bug into sitting down and putting something together. So, if you're not going to read this week, at least write something. And then, if you post anything on Amazon, go ahead and put it in the comments and let people find out about it. It's fine. You can use this video as a forum for saying, hey, look, I put out a book. I also read story physics. It's great, but I also put out a book. It's fine. Go ahead. It's okay. But yeah, like, subscribe, and do all the stuff that all YouTubers tell you to do. And have a good week, and we'll see you next Friday at 10 o'clock or whenever you get off of work. Have a good day.